Today, we are pleased to be joined by Jesse Simonton, college football columnist for On3Sports. And Jesse, great to have you on. And we want to talk a lot of ACC football with you today. And I guess we'll start with just your overall impressions of this ACC conference. Is it deep? Is it
is it bad?
Is it bad? I mean, average. I mean, how would you describe the ACC top to bottom?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I would say meh.
Yeah.
Maybe somewhere in the middle there. I mean, Miami has certainly been extremely impressive. Now, they have played a cupcake schedule. The win at Florida was nice, but that win, how we're going to find out maybe more and more how much that win does or doesn't really mean. I do think the rest of Miami's schedule sets itself up where the Hurricanes could arguably go undefeated. I think Louisville has quietly been a strong team, and they have maybe kind of taken that, in the offseason, NC State got a lot of buzz. I think Louisville's kind of filled that vacuum where NC State and Virginia Tech, I think, frankly, kind of disappointed. Been really disappointed with the Hokies, frankly. I was someone that I thought that this was going to be a year that Brent Pry and that program could maybe make an ascension, a leap. You bring back that volume of returning production and just what they were able to do last year once they kind of handed the keys to the car to Kyron Drones, and it doesn't speak very well, I think, for that staff that they have really kind of struggled so bad out of the gate this fall. So NC State's not as good. Maybe Georgia Tech's a little better. I still think Clemson's, a top 15-ish team, but just the lack of transfer portal additions is going to kind of snipe them down the road. And then obviously Florida State has just been a complete tire fire. So in the end, I would say meh. I would be surprised if this conference got more than one team in the college football playoff, but we still have some time to go to sort that sort of thing out.
All right, and we do want to ask you about that. I want to get back to that, but since you just brought up Florida State, let's go there next. So obviously this 0-3 start. A couple of questions on Florida State. Is Mike Norvell actually on the hot seat? Do you think they may bench DJ Uiagalelei at some point this season? And do you think, listen, they've obviously got a lot of talent there. They haven't figured it out yet this year. But do you think they figure it out at some point? And do you think they rebound eventually? Or is this a year where they go 3-9 or 2-10?
Okay, so just rattling off some of those in a row, several questions there. Mike Norvell is not on any hot seat now.
Okay.
He's got 65 million reasons to feel fine about where he stands. He got a big contract extension and raise just last January coming off, Florida State's season. Now, that doesn't mean, though, and I had a column about this after Saturday's latest loss, that doesn't mean that this isn't a program at a crossroads and he could find himself facing kind of a make-or-break season next year. And I think I think it's going to be up to him and the rest of that staff, which I anticipate some staff changes coming, frankly, on the heels of this season, but also just kind of how he's kind of evaluated his program, or kind of, he's been so praised because he had, he was hitting so well on the portal, and, he was kind of dubbed the true portal king. And he kind of, I don't want to say kind of, but they were not recruiting at the level that they should have been, not only just for Florida State, but then coming off of the success they had. The fact they couldn't even sign a top 10 class in 24, coming off, a 13-0 start to the season before a no-show in a bowl game, that's not going to cut it, especially not when you're talking about existing in the footprint of the Sunshine State. So he needs to be better. The guys around him need to be better. They clearly whiffed on the portal. The fact that this offseason, they wanted Cam Ward, didn't get him. They go with DJU. That's been a disaster. The defensive additions have not materialized. Roydell Williams is disappointed at running back, despite, I think, generating a bunch of buzz. So it has been a massive, massive disappointment that the Seminoles have gone from a top 10 team to a team that, frankly, I don't think is going to win more than maybe 4 or 5 games this fall.
Yeah, unbelievable that's how far they've fallen. Do you think at some point they turn the page on DJ Uiagalelei and look at what else they have in that quarterback room, or do you think as long as they're showing signs of improvement, he stays the starter?
Well, I don't know what signs of improvement. I mean, the first half he completed, I think, his first 6 passes against Memphis, and it went for like 12 yards. So I thought he might get benched at halftime. Frankly, he did play better. DJU did play better in the second half. It was not his fault by and large in the second half there. But I do think eventually they turn the page and give a guy like Brock Glenn a look, just because, again, I think if you go through this deal where you have a guy like DJU who is extremely underperforming, and then you don't even in what already looks like a lost season, you don't try to kind of say, hey, what do we have in this kid that we actually recruited, that we brought in, that we believe we started to develop. I think that sends kind of a dangerous message to not only the rest of your program, but the potential high school prospects you may be interested in down the line.
We do want to get your thoughts certainly on Syracuse, and around here anyway, there's a lot of excitement. Fran Brown has come in; he's changed the roster with infusing it with talent. He brings in Kyle McCord. They're getting transfers from Texas A&M and Georgia and Ohio State, and this is different for Syracuse. Off to the 2-0 start. I know it's super early, but you look at their schedule. They don't have Clemson. They don't have Carolina. They don't have Louisville. They just beat Georgia Tech. Do you think this is a team that could actually make some noise this year, or do you think ultimately Syracuse still falls in that 7-5, 6-6, 8-4 range?
Well, I think they're closer to the 8-4 range. I do that. I said that before the season, I thought that Syracuse could be. I dubbed them kind of Louisville 2023, which was Jeff Brom walked in there. He overhauled the roster with a bunch of portal additions, and he was very open and frank that they had a schedule that gave them a formidable path to the ACC title game. Lo and behold, they make it for the first time in school history. No, it did not work out against Florida State, but that was still a big boon. I don't know if Syracuse can get to Charlotte, but I think that they absolutely have a navigable path to get to 8, maybe 9 wins. There's going to be some toss-up games, at UNLV. I know that's kind of a tricky one. Again, NC State's been down, but you still got to go to Raleigh. But I think that the schedule sets up where 8, 9 wins, especially with the way Kyle McCord's playing. Why not? I mean, Fran Brown has a lot of folks excited there, and I think with good reason. Yeah,
McCord has been fantastic. They're getting set to take on Stanford Friday night here in the Dome for a national TV game. All right, let's circle back to what you said about the ACC and the college football playoff, because it's been something we've discussed on the show before about if you're the ACC, what do you want to have happen right now? As bad as Florida State is, we're talking about, Clemson running the table and Miami running the table would probably be best case scenario, right? And you have your 2 best programs, have a shot at landing in the college football playoff. What would it have to take in your mind for the ACC to get 2 in the college football playoff?
Well, I think really right now it's their best path would be for a 10-2 Clemson and a undefeated Miami team to probably get in, or 11-2 or 10, whatever, something like that. Because just the strength, what sort of staying power does a Georgia Tech have? Same for Louisville. Again, I think that they have been impressive early. They're going to need to beat a team like Notre Dame. I think to kind of have the schedule that the committee is going to look at, because we haven't gotten to this point of the schedule yet, guys. But kind of broadening out. There's a whole lot of undefeated teams still, and there's going to be a lot of teams taking, losses here in the coming weeks when you're having these teams go up against each other, specifically in the SEC and the Big Ten. But a lot of those teams, you're just going to see those teams shuffle in the rankings. I've said since the beginning, since we've kind of started this 12-team playoff or announced it, long are the days that there's going to be a lot of undefeated teams, but you're going to have a whole lot of 10-2 teams come the end of the year. Where does the ACC stack up in that? Outside of Miami and Clemson, I think it's hard to see even a Louisville, kind of finishing with that sort of record right now.
All right, let's broaden it out from the ACC and go big picture. And, you talk about, the best teams, the best conferences beating up on each other. We did see Georgia get a scare on the road at Kentucky. They hung on, they won the game, but they did get passed by Texas in the AP poll. Georgia's still number one in the coaches poll. Based on what you've seen, and I know it's a small sample size, but who would you take to win the national title right now? Is it Georgia, or are you taking somebody other than the Bulldogs?
Right now, I wouldn't back off that prediction. I still think that beating this team multiple times is going to be extremely difficult. With 18 to 23-year-olds, you're going to have a day like what they had in Kentucky. And they've, had 16 points against the Wildcats. For whatever reason, they have not played well in Lexington under Kirby Smart. A lot of folks think you can just walk, into Kroger Field and walk through the checkout line and get a W, but they do have some players. They played terrible against South Carolina, but then the very next week you show up an angry team, and suddenly Georgia finds himself in a four-quarter fist fight. So I really I don't have an issue at all with Texas being ranked ahead of Georgia right now, though. I think the win we're going to find out down the road if the win at Michigan is better than a neutral site win at Clemson. But it was certainly impressive. And then coming off the heels of what Georgia did at Kentucky, which was a very underwhelming performance, ranking the Longhorns number one, no issue there. I still think it's a short list of Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State that can actually win the national championship. We're going to find out if Alabama I think is on that, can enter that tier one next weekend when they host the Bulldogs. That's going to be a monster game. And then the kind of dark horse team that I'm curious about, and we'll find out a lot on Saturday, is Tennessee. I've been extremely high on the Vols during the preseason, thought they would finish in the top 5 of the SEC. Now they have a big opportunity to kind of make a statement because they match up very well against Oklahoma, and that's one that for the Sooners' SEC debut could not go particularly well for Josh Heupel's former team against the team that he currently coaches.
All right, Jesse, great stuff. We love the analysis. We love the insight. Thanks so much for coming on, and hopefully we can do it again as things move along here.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.